Good morning. This is the lecture for Ancient and Medieval History for Friday, the 15th. It is Good Friday, for those of us who are Christian, the day that Jesus meets Pilate and is sentenced to death, is crucified at noon, dies at 3 p.m., is buried before sunset. And this sets us up for the holiest day in the Christian calendar, which is Easter, this Sunday. Christ is risen. He shall be risen indeed. It's also tax day, or at least what used to be. I think it still is tax day. I think that was just. I know some weasels try to say, "Oh, we should extend it to May," and I think during COVID we did, but I think we're back to normal. So the income tax, which was established by Woodrow Bleeping Wilson, my least favorite president of all time, was set up to pay for World War I, among other things. It's nice to know we're still paying for a war that ended, 103, 104 years ago. Given that it's Good Friday, it's fitting that we conclude our lessons on Islam for the time being and give you a quiz on it. So, one of the difficulties that one faces when dealing with Islam is what attracted Cassius Clay to it. Islam does not have as one of its chief virtues turning the other cheek. Somebody slaps you, you deter others from slapping by slapping them back hard. And that made a lot of sense to a man like Cassius Clay, who became Muhammad Ali, the boxer. He's a boxer. He fights back. And as a guy who's from the Bronx, I can tell you that makes a lot of sense to me, too. You don't want to appear weak. The next time you go to a big city, here are some things to do. Put your money in your shoe, except for a little pocket money that you can afford to lose. Do not keep your wallet where your wallet normally goes. Put it somewhere much more sensitive so that if somebody tries doing a bump steal, which is a classic way of stealing your wallet, they bump you so your touch sensation is overwhelmed by the bump, and while they're doing that, they lift your wallet. So place your wallet somewhere unexpected. Or don't wear your wallet. Same with your keys. Here are other things. Don't look people in the eye. Not on the bus, not on the subway. It's a challenge. Don't be all touristy. Oh, the tall buildings, they're so wondrous. I'm from New York, so I assume there are tall buildings wherever you're going. And they are. They're architectural masterpieces. But you are acting like prey. You're acting like a wildebeest or a gazelle on the Serengeti plain of East Africa. And what that does is it pricks up the attention of the wild dogs and hyenas and lions, among others. And they will eat you if you let them. If somebody offers you an opportunity to play three-card Monte, don't. Or any other street game. It's a scam. And they'll probably rob you while you're engaged in being scammed. Be careful about buying anything from a street vendor, because there's somebody watching to see where you get your money from, and they'll try to get it from there too. Don't keep your hands in your pockets. Makes it easier to take. You see a beggar, do not offer them a damn thing. There are all sorts of city services for the poor. You offer somebody money, again, you're inviting somebody to see where you get your money from, and you're also inviting somebody to see you as a sucker. If they need food, there are soup kitchens and homeless shelters. Also, many of them are mentally deranged. Do not put yourself at risk. Well, aren't you being kind of offensive? I don't care. I care more about you, my students, now and in the future than I care about somebody who is a bum, a transient, a homeless person. If they're mentally ill, they should get help. Our society should have more options than it does for the mentally ill. I think that things can be done. But in the meantime, I don't want you to be a victim of a thief, of a homeless person, or worse. Don't act like prey. So Islam views turning the other cheek as acting like prey. And again, I can comprehend that. I can see it. But the fact that Muslims are involved in the vast majority of global conflicts since World War II, there's a reason for that. And the reason isn't Muslims are evil. Some Muslims are certainly evil. Some Muslims are not. Some Christians are certainly evil, and some are not. Trust me, I've met my share of evil Christians over the years. Some of them are crazy. Some of them simply use religion as a way to slap people around. It's obnoxious. It's an abuse of religion. And since I believe there's a God, it will pay. But the examples of Christ and of Muhammad play here. They matter. And this is going to affect the history of Islam, and as it has affected the history of Christianity. Jesus was a carpenter until he became a wandering preacher, teacher, and healer. When Jesus became a wandering preacher, teacher, and healer, he did not acquire political power. Oh, there were crowds that listened to him from time to time. He developed a reputation, but he never had a permanent base of operation. He never had a budget. He had a bunch of followers who helped him, but those followers tended to be either people like Matthew or like Mary Magdalene, tax collectors and prostitutes, or they tended to be people like Peter and John and James, who were fishermen. Fishermen? You want a religion started by a carpenter and some fishermen? You crazy? Jesus only commanded those who placed themselves willingly under his command. Those people called him master. They called him rabbi, which means teacher. Jesus got angry. He once said, I don't come to bring peace, I come to bring an axe to divide brother from brother, father from son. Because the Christian faith, like any strong belief system, is going to separate you from people who aren't part of it. And of course, he gets angry at the money changers in the temple, the temple, the court of the Gentiles. But they don't talk about him beating people. In one occasion, in one account, he whips at the money changers with a whip. But in the other accounts, he yells and he knocks over things. Yes, that's obnoxious if you have a table full of money and delicate scales and some guy from the countryside goes, womp! But it's not the same as cutting the hands of a thief off or gouging somebody's eyes out or stoning them to death. Just drop it on my desk. It's good to see you. I hope you're happy and safe to be here. Yeah, it looks like you had a good drive. God, that's always fun. I'm glad you're okay. It is. Or Emma's snow tires got taken off yesterday, so she had fun. Everyone's okay then? Good. Okay. Well, you're not going to sit in any colored chair. No, you got a blue chair. You deserve it. I agree. So, that's true. I agree. You have a bad morning, you want to sit in a blue chair? Be my guest. Sit in a blue chair. So, the example of Christ tends to encourage people towards a moderate personal conduct. What that means is, most of the time, Christians can't look at that time Jesus grabbed somebody by the scruff of the throat, knocked him into a wall, slapped him silly, and called him Susan. Because that's not recounted anywhere, anywhere in the Bible. So while there are Christian soldiers, onward Christian soldiers marching off to war, while there is a crusading tradition in Christianity, that crusading tradition doesn't happen until long contact, 400 years of contact with Islam. 400 years of contact with Islam finally encourages Christians to engage in holy war. Now, Christian governments like the Roman government at the end could be oppressive. They could punish pagans and they could punish non-Catholic Christians, that's true. But for the most part, a murderous, blood-stained Christian warrior can be shamed by a little old lady who would ask, what would Jesus do? And unless you can recount the time Jesus took his sword and waded through the infidels like a farmer cutting wheat, chances are the soldier will at least feel a pang of, yeah, I'm serving Christ in my own murderous way. So Christianity, while it has its excesses, its oppressions, its violence, and its wars, Christianity tends towards sins other than violent ones. Muhammad was the husband of a wealthy cougar woman. It's a common expression. I don't know if you know it. It's not meant to be vulgar. A cougar is supposed to be a middle-aged woman who enjoys dating younger men. Okay? That's just what it is. If it means anything beyond that, I'm really not aware of it. Because people look at me, did you just say that? Well, that's what I mean. In any case, he marries, what's her name? What's her name? What's the name of his older wife? Khadijah. Khadijah, yes. So he marries Khadijah, and then he helps run the caravans, but she still basically is in charge of it. And he uses that leisure time to confer with Gabriel, who has the word of God, and he becomes a prophet. Now, as a prophet, he is taken out of Mecca during the Hajj. He is taken out of Mecca during the Hijrah.
Doing okay, Mr. Jadori?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Anyway, and he then basically becomes leader of Medina. He becomes leader of an army. He acts as a judge. He acts as a general. He acts as a king. And he then manages the conquest of the Arabian Peninsula and sets the stage for the conquest of the entire Persian Empire and about 2/3 of the ancient Roman Empire. Half to 2/3. It's a lot of work for one man. So, was Muhammad involved in death? Yeah. As a judge, there were death sentences carried out. As a general, well, the kind of way you gotta win battles is to kill the enemy's soldiers until they stop fighting you. I don't know if the man personally fought in battle wielding a sword. I honestly don't. But he had a different life experience than did Jesus. So in Islam, you could have a scholarly person who doesn't really believe in smiting the infidel, who doesn't really believe in punishing apostasy with murder, this is honor killings, who doesn't really believe in slavery or child wifery or polygamy or arranged marriages or any of the other dark age things that are in the Quran that Muhammad engaged in. A sort of modern Muslim. A Muslim with one foot in the modern secular world and another foot in the world of religion. I know you want college to show Michelle, but I got a bunch of young men in here. I could teach them all they do, but yeah. Fair enough. Yes, I was
You
volunteering.
did not teach me to wear gloves.
Ah. Yes, I was going to volunteer some of you fellows to go out and shovel.
I would have done it.
I believe you. It's your men. And some of the women would say, "Why didn't you volunteer us?" Because you're girly. And no, because I'm an old-fashioned guy. I mean, if one of you wants to go out there, me shovel better than any man, fine, be my guest. But you get the idea. Amazon shovelers of Idaho. There's a short story right there. So,
Not to be a feminist, but
yeah. So, what a person like that, sort of a modern, moderate, mild-mannered Muslim, can be shamed by a little old lady who said, "What would Muhammad do? Would Muhammad sit around writing essays? Would he discuss things with Satan-like people? Or would he get up and do something?" So in Islam, the moderate is shamed by the extremist. Not because Islam is evil, but because the life of Muhammad was the life of a warrior, king, prophet, judge who took power into his hands in the name of Allah, in the name of God. He fought and won battles. Jesus never did that. Anything like that. So if you want to understand one of the basic differences between Islam and Christianity, that's it. It's the example of the primary people. Now, what I am prepared to do... Oh, there's one other thing I didn't teach you. I'll keep a couple things, actually. Okay. Islamic medicine. They actually didn't believe that sticking leeches on bleeding wounds would suck out the evil humors. That was our medicine. Leechcraft. You're sick, here. And the leech sucks out your blood to balance the four humors. This is ancient Greek medicine, and it kills people. It's really not very good. By modern standards, anyway, we think it actually makes things a lot worse. But Islamic medicine kept more of the ancient knowledge, and they were much cleaner about things. They tended to be less mystical and more scientific. So for hundreds of years after the High Middle Ages began and contact of a peaceful kind was established with Islam, the richest Europeans would get doctors trained by Muslims because they were better at their job. Muslim engineering and city planning was superior to anything that was in Europe. It was as good or better even than Constantinople. They were beautiful places. Cordova, in particular, is in Spain, and it is an Islamic city because, again, Spain was Muslim for about 700 years. So you got this beautiful mosque and these beautiful gardens and fountains and everything else, and it's just magnificent. So Muslims had the wealth and knowledge to do some really interesting architecture. Astronomy. Let me reference Rigel or Rigel, Aldebaran, Alioth, Al-Henna. Arabic names. Most of the stars in the visible heavens in the northern hemisphere were not named by Greeks. They were named by Muslims because they had enough wealth to have an educated class of astronomers. So they also had a duty to travel to Mecca and back. That involved navigation by the stars. And they had to figure out where Mecca was to do their 5 times a day praying, facing Mecca and the Kaaba. So, yeah, that was something that they did. They were very big into astronomical navigation. And so they named and located a lot of the stars. Now, the Sufi are Islamic mystics, S-U-F-I. These are Muslims who do not follow the fundamentalist path at all. The Sufi mystics believe in listening to God. listening for God. They're not quite Quakers, but they have a similar attitude about listening more than they speak. And Sufi mystics look for God's wisdom beyond Islam. They are primarily Islamic. That's their focus, that's their fundament, that's their basis. But a Sufi mystic will look at Christian manners, forgiveness. They'll look at Chinese balance, Confucianism. They'll look at some Indian ideas, some Buddhism, some Hinduism. A Sufi mystic will try to see God's plan and God's wisdom in most everything they do. And a Sufi mystic tends not only to be tolerant of other ideas and other ways of life, they tend to be extremely peaceful. Finally, how do the Europeans get the knowledge? Well, there are a few ways. The Islamic knowledge, which is far superior to ours, comes to us by war in the form of the Christian Crusades. As you will learn, around the late 1000s AD, after 400 years of being on the receiving end of Islamic jihad, Christians figure out, hey, why don't we try some of this holy war? And they develop crusades. And for about a century, Christian Crusader Knight kingdoms are set up in Judea, in Palestine, in Israel. And these Crusader states are eventually driven out. But not before the Knights get a taste for silk clothing, spiced foods, hot baths, and other Eastern luxuries that Arabs take for granted. And this causes trade, because when the Christian Knights and their descendants go back home to Western Europe, they have contacts in the Middle East. And a trade network is set up between the Middle East and North Italy, and then from North Italy to wherever these knights tend to be. And that is going to bring about peaceful contact between the Muslims and the Christians in the markets of the Middle East and in northern Italy. And it's no accident that the Renaissance, the end of the Middle Ages, the beginning of modern times, happens because of Islamic knowledge in North Italy. So the Renaissance happens in North Italy. So war like crusades leads to peaceful trade, leads to the Renaissance in the trading centers of North Italy. The other warlike area that there are two other warlike areas. One is against the Turks, before they conquer Byzantium and into modern times afterwards. And when you fight somebody, you have to learn about them. You deal with them. It's an intimate thing. Think about it, without picturing it too much. You grapple with people closely when you're making love to them or when you're wrestling or fighting them. That's the closest you get to another human being when you're an adult. So fighting the Turks, like fighting the Crusades, gave us knowledge. And then finally there is the 700-year Spanish Reconquista. Reconquista. Can any of you español scolares? Yeah, the Reconquest. Thank you. The Reconquista is the great war of the Christian Spaniards, expanding their realms from the Cantabrian Alps to drive, in 1492, the Muslims finally out of Spain. And it's to celebrate driving the Muslims out that Queen Isabella of Castile and Spain sends that crazy Genovese sea captain Columbus out on his Atlantic journey. Without getting the Muslims out of Spain, that would not have happened, at least not in that way. So, there we are. You got a quiz. So please take everything off your desks and spread out, and we'll take the quiz. Have a good weekend. Do you guys have an assignment due Monday?
No.
Not. Monday, April 18th is your next assignment. Wait.
No.
20.
No.
Wait, that's European. You're right. Monday, April 25th is your next assignment. Good. So have fun this weekend and watch out for the snow.